Welcome to the Giants Nation Show. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, the Football Grump. The Crump. No, we're talking corners, not groiners. The Football Grump, and we're looking at corners, doing our corner preview a little behind. So back-to-back episodes, quarterback and then cornerback Thursday and Friday. It's going to start with Travis Hunter. We'll finish with Grump's guy, Quincey Riley from Louisville at the end. A Colorado and a Louisville guy, just like yesterday's episode. Grump, how are we doing?
You're doing good. It's Crump to you. Ready to talk corners. This is actually one of my favorite positions to break down. I think it's a lot of fun, and I'm ready to go.
It feels like obviously you have Travis Hunter, Will Johnson. We're not doing Jahdae Barron just because where he's like consensus is out of the Giants' range, where they're just not going to take him. And if he gets in that range, I'll watch him on Friday of the draft of day 2. So basically you're going everyone outside of that in like the top 100 or close to the top 100 in that. And obviously you have Hunter, Will Johnson. I don't know why Will Johnson has went from projected top 3 pick in the summer to now where people just don't talk about him at all. Maybe it's because we're in Giants land and he's not someone we're considering, but I still think his film is really good. Hunter is obviously Travis Hunter. And then I just feel like there's a lot of good physical corner twos in this class. Again, not a ton of guys who are going to come in and be locked down, all pro, Pro Bowl corner ones, but just a big group of guys who are going to be physical. They're going to piss off receivers. They're going to do a good job being that second corner, going to get turnovers with good ball skills. And it's just throughout, usually corner is a position where I hate a lot of the guys we talk about and been rumored to the Giants. And there's really not that with this group of guys that we're going to talk about, for me at least.
I'm actually usually very down on corners compared to consensus, on a general scale, and it's because I think it's one of the hardest positions to transition from the college game to the NFL game, and I think that a lot of the times it's the under-the-radar guy or the guy who is projected in, the second round or the third round. Those are the guys who usually, I don't say usually, but a lot of times those are the guys that stick around, and the guys that are picked in the first round, they end up busting out. I mean, it happens all the time with first-round corners. And so I'm usually very, very weary about taking them in the first round. But I like taking them in the day 2 of the draft. I really like going for corners. And I think that this is a group of guys this year where there's a lot of value to be had on day 2.
Right. So we'll get into all, and a lot of just press guys as well too, right? A lot of physical guys, a lot of I think their flaws are similar as well. Not going to announce the Patreons on this show. It's late. Was kind of cramming to get it all in. But I will say for the Patreons, the stickers, all 3,000 of them were delivered today, which I'm extremely excited about. I got a great idea for a video. So I've got a stack of a good amount of envelopes, so we're going to get those sent out to you, and then we'll announce all the new Patreons on Monday's show. Monday's show, Grump, you're not going to be on that one. Suck it. But I'm excited about it. Connor Rogers, we did I just had him do a little mock draft, and then I'll do some wide receiver stuff. But all right, I knew that was going to happen eventually, Grump. I knew that was going to happen eventually. But let's get into Travis Hunter. Old Travis. And I know that guy's first name. The corner out of Colorado. 6 foot, 188 pounds. We're not going to talk about him as a wide receiver. I mean, 12 pass breakups, 7 interceptions the last 2 years. Heisman winner at corner and wide receiver. I mean, he's just Grump. He plays the position like a wide receiver, right? He understands where these passing concepts are going. He knows where to key in on quarterbacks and what they're looking at. And it's just his ball skills are not just, he can go up and make a nice grab. He does. Or not that, he can close in on a ball and break it up. It's just, I've never seen not never, but it's very rare where you see a corner, Grump. We talk about turning the head, where it's he just knows when that ball's coming and he's able to telegraph it from miles away. And that's why he's able to get his hands on the football so much, because he knows, okay, the receiver's breaking here. This is where the ball is going to come out. Let me turn my head, find the quarterback, and make a play.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing that I said about Mikey Sainer still last year. Being able to play both sides of the ball, we'll leave the fact that you have to consider Travis Hunter as a potential wide receiver anyway off the table for now. But the fact is that just even if he wasn't currently playing both sides of the ball, just switch over the knowledge switch over helps so much on the defensive side of the ball. Just understanding concepts as they're breaking down because you run them, because you understand how it's supposed to beat defenses and in what ways. Then you flip to the other side of the ball. You know exactly how to combat that, and you're able to recognize it a lot faster. On top of that, Travis Hunter is just an absolute animal for like the passion of the game. Like I honest to God think that he is going to be the kind of guy that's going to spend all of the hours watching film on his own without anyone telling him to do it on his opponent week after week after week, the same way that Dion did when he was a player. So he wants to absorb as much as possible. He wants to be involved as much as possible. I think that Travis Hunter is going to be invaluable at the next level.
You can tell in his game how much he understands what they're running, right? Like, he cheats his leverage so much, right? Like, he will straight up. It looks like he's lined up on the wrong guy. How much he'll cheat, and he's like, I know a dig's coming here, so I'm going to cheat inside. And these wide receivers are trying to run a dig route, and they just have nowhere to go because he's just standing there like a wall, being like, "Go here," because this is where you're trying to go. And even if they take those vertical, well, he's got the quickness, the loose hips to turn and run with them as well. And if that ball's not thrown perfect, he's going to get his head around and he's going to leap and make plays. You think of that UCF vertical where he just gets up after it. A shame he didn't bring that in, but just a really nice play. And then in zone, again, another UCF play where KJ Jefferson, they run post wheel. And he's supposed to carry the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
And KJ Jefferson gets pressured, and he just bails out on that, right? Where, again, this may be like a difference of college and NFL, where an NFL QB, makes a guy miss and sees the wheel wide open and throws it. But he knows. He's throwing the underneath. He's throwing the flare route from the running back or whatever it was, and just pounces and is able to intercept it, right? So when you put him in zone coverage, his IQ is just top notch, right? Like you watch the man coverage and fall in love with him, but the zone coverage is just where he just understands everything that offense is trying to run, and he's taking advantage of it pretty consistently.
Yeah, I think the man coverage is where you see his athleticism kind of keep him in things, and he has the speed and the ability to mirror and match guys really, really well. But the zone coverage is where he really, really shines. You said it, that diving pick against UCF. That's one of my favorite plays of his. The closing point at the catch point is incredibly sharp. And I also think that, we talk about his speed. The other thing, it's not just straightaway speed. He's got the ability to tempo that speed alongside the receiver and also on zone coverage, bait quarterbacks. So, I think the zone coverage is where he really, really shines. I know everyone, we're all kind of trained to look for the guys that can hang in man coverage, and we value that a lot. But zone coverage is really where Travis Hunter shines and is exceptional.
Yeah, that's just like where you see, like, okay, this is why this guy's on a different level. Now, I'll say this. He's not a perfect corner. Like, he has some weaknesses, right? The slants. He gives up the slants, right? Because he's looking to stop other routes, and he gives up those plays. The guy from Stanford got him on that. And I think the thing that shows up most consistently that I'm not too worried about, because his ball skills will make quarterbacks pay if they try this too often. When he's going up against a bigger receiver at 188 pounds, there's just a lot of times where they make tough grabs, right? Like, even like ball in both guys' hands, right? Where it's just like, oh, great Travis Hunter play, and they're able to rip that ball away from him. Like, that's basically, like, I just saw him lose, not all the time, obviously, but I just saw him lose contested catches. Oklahoma State had a couple. You go back to that Stanford game from 2023 where he gave up a couple in that game, and then he gave up, the one in overtime. You see that pretty consistent. I don't think that's something that, again, that's going to stop him from succeeding. I think it's going to be something. I think he's not going to be I think he's a corner that's going to give up some yards, right? I don't think we're looking at a Sauce Gardner type of corner. I think Sauce was a better corner coming out from Cincinnati, where We just hold receivers to less than 200 yards in a year, and it's unreal. Or Jalen Johnson. I view him more in the Derek Stingley role type of player where he's going to give up like 400 yards a season. He might have a season where he gives up 600, 650, but he's going to have pass breakups. He's going to get interceptions, and he's going to make quarterbacks pay for targeting him too often.
100% agree. I don't think this is the same kind of situation as Sauce Gardner, but I'm not really worried about anything with him because I think from what I've gathered from him, and again, I've never met the guy, probably never will meet the guy, but I get the impression that he's the kind of guy who's going to take to coaching really, really well. So if there's an area of his game that needs improvement and a coach points it out to him, I think that he's the kind of person that will take it upon himself to improve and work at that, like woodshed all of the finer details to make that a better part of his game. One thing I did notice, and again, I'm not super worried about this, but it's something I saw time and time again. I wouldn't consider him grabby along the route, but there's a consistent time when he gets a receiver gets across his face, specifically outside step to inside, he always reaches with the left hand. And at times it's beyond 5 yards, and at times it looks worse than it really is. You get a little bit of a jersey tug, and I don't know. Is it going to be holding in the NFL? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But it's something I consistently see. He just stretches out with that left hand and grabs on for just a second, and it could be enough. That's all.
In college, like I think he did get a little bit of star treatment where they didn't call it on him a lot, but there was a lot of times where, like, one of my notes is physical and press, but gets way too grabby past 5 yards, or there'll be times like you put him in cloud coverage. He can jam a receiver into the sideline, put him on their ass. But there's also times where he's throwing a jam at like 8 yards, and that's going to turn into take a 3rd and 8 and turn it into a first down. So I think that's just something that comes with basically every corner nowadays, unless you're fucking Patrick Surtain Jr. But Sauce Gardner's really grabby. J.C. Horn's really like all these. It seems like all these guys are like that. And it's just kind of like you got to play with it consistently so refs don't call. So it's not like it's a weird thing. Like I think Richard Sherman kind of was living proof of this, where if you're physical all the time, the referees are not going to call penalties on you. Where if you're not physical like that, and then you do get grabby on a 3rd down, well, they're gonna give it to you. So, this is not the edge preview, Grump, but where are you in the Travis Hunter versus Abdul Carter? So let's just pretend both are available at 3. Who do you prefer?
Oh, it's so tough. It's so tough. I think you'd be happy with either. I think from a philosophical standpoint, I think Travis Hunter is. I think you use the draft to get the best players that you can. And in that case, I would say Travis Hunter. But I mean, I don't know. Is that really realistic all of the time? Is the difference between Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter massive? I don't think so. I like both of them. I'm very scared about taking corners in the first round, but Travis Hunter is an extreme exception, and I think a lot of it has to do with what goes on between the ears with him and the character makeup of him as a worker.
He's got a fail safe of even if he fails at corner, it's like, well, we know he's going to be a good wide receiver, right? Where that's wide receiver's a little more like clean, like he's going to be good. We don't need to worry about him busting for a lot of guys, and I think Hunter falls in that category.
Yeah, I mean, you do have that added benefit right there, but I mean, again, if he fails, I don't think he will, but if he fails as a corner and you have to resort to him as like, I don't think he's really like an alpha wide receiver 1. Immediately the conversation becomes, well, yeah, he's a wide receiver that's a starter, but at 3, you know what I mean? So, I mean, I don't know.
Let's move on to Will Johnson, the corner out of Michigan, and I don't even know why we're putting him on here because he's probably not someone that's realistic for the Giants unless they were a team that traded down. 6'2", 194 pounds. Got injured this past year, only played 6 games. Grump, he was someone in our summer way too early draft preview, and he was someone like, man, if you get a top 3 pick, I can see him being a guy there, and I still really like him, right? Like, you look at his film from this year, and I haven't come off on Will Johnson. Like, I just, mentioned Surtain. He reminds me of Patrick Surtain Jr., where he's this big cornerback who just plays controlled from mostly off coverage and zone. And you thought that Wink would put him in a little more man situations. I guess maybe the couple games I watched from this year, he wasn't. But, like, he just plays, physical from off coverage, and he just is extremely patient and smart. Like, he just stays square consistently. He doesn't let wide receivers play games with him with, foot jabs or head fakes. He just is always going to stay on top of them. And then his transitions from like back pedal to in phase is beautiful. His burst out of his back pedal is I feel like just okay, but he's got the ball skills. He's vulnerable to hitches and ends like a lot of corners are. But like, you put him in zone coverage, he does the two-man concept. He's going to watch the quarterback's eyes, right? He's going to try and bait him into the high and take that away, and then close down on the low if he ends up going with that. He's just someone who's never going to be out of place, and is like a guy who's going to – I think he is a cornerback one for a long time in the NFL.
I think Will Johnson's a corner one. There's a significant increase in risk with him over Travis Hunter, I think. Shoulder injury ended his season early. Shoulder injury, missed a game, then had turf toe, so he missed the remainder of the season, missed the combine, then missed his own pro day with a hamstring thing. All of these things are red flags for sure, but just looking at the tape stuff, not a lot of red flags, and he's a lot of fun to watch too. He's a gambler. He likes to use his closing speed and watch the underneath stuff and jump it. You look at the pick six against USC, the other one against Fresno State. I mean, that's just watching the quarterback's eyes and understanding and knowing what that is, and then trusting your closing speed and just wiping it out. I think he is one of the more unique ones in which I didn't find him to be overly grabby. Physical, sure, along the route, but I wouldn't say grabby.
No.
A lot of like, they're both playing the ball kind of situations. I really, really like Will Johnson. I guess I have to ask you this, though. Is there, forget where the Giants are picking, is there, does he want to play for the Giants after working with Wink Martindale? Like, is there some level of like tainted, I don't know, feeling?
I don't
about
think
them? Okay.
I don't, even if there is, it doesn't matter.
No.
And like I said, I don't even know. Part of me thinks we should have just not put him in, but here's why I wanted to put him in. If we're just talking strictly corner, like, I think there's an argument to be made that Will Johnson is better than Travis Hunter. Now, again, I'm taking Travis Hunter. I think he gives you just way more potential. He's going to give you, I think, and I just think Travis Hunter is better. But I think that's a legitimate conversation of who the better corner is, Will Johnson or Travis Hunter.
I definitely think so. And I think for a long time, casuals at the work office, you know what I mean, ask me my opinion of that Travis Hunter kid. I'm like, Will Johnson's really good too. Like all throughout, the fall and winter. I certainly think he's more comfortable. He played not more comfortable, but he looks very, very comfortable. He's very patient. Like you said, he doesn't really fall for a lot of foot jabs and things at the release. He's also not really in press that much to fall for that stuff. But he is very, very patient, very fluid in his back pedal in the transition, flipping his hips, etc. Very, very, very comfortable corner, and played at a higher level of competition. I mean, not taking anything away from Travis Hunter, but having to go against Ohio State every year is, you know what I mean? It's not nothing.
Right. And we can move on from Will Johnson in this episode. Who do you want to do an ad for? We don't have any ads. Is there anything you got to do an ad for?
Yeah, I'm happy doing ads for drugs. We did that last time, right?
Yeah, our friend John Padrino Tortuga, he made a really good logo, right? Like the presented by drugs. Almost thought about making that just the official logo of the show. I'll say this: we got some draft sponsors locked in. And possibly training camp might be locked in. Some fun stuff coming ahead. Especially for people fans who have non Major League Baseball. How about that? All right, I'm excited. Who do you? I feel like we should hit this guy next, even though he's not who I think is the next best. But he did have a 30 visit with the Giants. And that's Shavon Revel out of ECU, 6', 294 pounds, 32 and 5-inch arms. Coming off of an ACL tear, right, which feels like a lot of these guys are coming off like injuries, right, with Will Johnson, Benjamin Morrison, guys coming off injury. But I feel like there's a good amount of undisciplinedness to his game. That's not a word, but it kind of is if you really think about it. But man, it's like he is athletic. He's strong. He likes to hit. There is mental lapses, right, where he gets caught up on a pick, a rub route, and it's just like, man, how did you not avoid this? And then, you're giving up a 45-yard play. Times where he in zone coverage and a receiver gets to his blind spot and runs right behind him. So there is issues there, but I just think he is so athletic and disruptive that, like, that's like a fun guy to work with, and Shavon Revel Jr. Which, again, sometimes we get excited about guys' potential, and then it's like, yeah, but they're not going to learn. They're not going to get better at these things. But just the way he's able to close space, be physical, and just be athletic in general, it's just like, man, just clean up some of the basic stuff with his length, and you've got, at worst, I think, a good corner too. Like, I'm confident he'll be a good corner too in the NFL.
Couple things about him. Really tall, really long. 6'2", 32.5-inch arms. Is that the end all be all? Absolutely not. Can it help? 100%. He's a little bit older than some of the other guys, but not by much. He's still only 23 years old, so he's, still plenty good there. But it stinks that he's coming off a torn ACL and lost experience, because I think there's for real man coverage skills there. That's for sure. I think anyone would see that right off the bat. I think he can get lost or drift a little bit too much in zone coverage. I don't know if really lost is the right word, but just
it feels like he's freestyling zone coverage a lot, right? Where you can call it taking chances, but there's times where he's out of place. He gives up underneath stuff from off coverage weight. He gives up the curls, the in breakers. But like you said, it's like you're working with him. But I guess it kind of matters. How do you feel coming off the injury and what's going on mentally with him? Because if you don't think he's going to put in the work to get better at all this stuff, then you stay away from him.
Yeah, this is a person that I'm not super familiar with. I haven't been following Shavon Revel for more than a couple weeks. So I don't really know a whole bunch about him, the guy, to really give have an opinion on like how he'll take to coaching or anything like that. I will say he's one of the more physical guys that we're going to cover today. I think he's the only one that consistently was used in blitzes. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but
Morrison did a little bit, but yeah.
Okay. But yeah, he's super athletic. So all the rawness, you have the athletic upside. I wouldn't use the athleticism to make up for the rawness, but he's going to have to, I think he's going to have to do a little bit of learning and getting comfortable. I don't really know that he's a starter week one. You know what I mean?
Right. So this is guys with the Shavon Revel profile are guys that you can fall in love with, and then you get to the NFL, and it's like, yeah, but they just give up catches. And like I mentioned, like he gives up the hitches, the in breakers, and he plays like kind of high for his height. Right, like you watch some corners there, they squat down low. They get like his press is, like you said, extremely disruptive, but he plays high, and it just feels like he's just, when the receivers are snappy at the top of the route, it just loses him right on a crosser, and it doesn't need to be the fastest. Sometimes it's Old Dominion wide receivers where they're running an over route, and they're running it to the right. They throw a little shoulder fake to the left, and then continue that, and they're able to separate. Now, his athleticism in college was able to make up for that, right? He had an interception where he's playing from way off coverage against Appalachian State. I think it was actually a flea flicker, but he just closes in. But in the NFL, that's not always going to happen. You're going to be facing teams that have two really good wide receivers. So that's my worry with Revel. Is like you fall in love with this athleticism, the physicality, and all that, but then you get to the NFL where you're facing NFL wide receivers every week, and he just gives up catches, and that was. I think he's a very different profile from Deonte Banks, but that was my worry with Banks. Is like, man, there's a lot to love, but he loses the release, and I don't think he's great at the catch point. And guys that lose the release and aren't great at the catch point give up catches in the NFL.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. So I don't personally. I think Revel is an absolute recipe for a bust. personally. There's a lot that needs to happen from the jump from college level to the NFL game. He's coming from a smaller school with smaller competition. He's already got the rawness in that game. I mean, there's a lot, and I said at the top of this that I think it's one of the harder positions to transition from the college game to the pro game. And again, where I was saying, like, I don't know enough about Revel, the guy, where, the comparison to Deonte Banks, I remember one of the reasons I really, really liked him is because of his pathway to where he was. The only offer he got was from Maryland, his home state, and he worked his way into being a first round pick. And he had first round buzz. It's not just the Giants reached on him. He was picked pretty much where he belonged. And that was
right.
I think that's him betting on himself and putting in the work and whatever. And I'm not saying Shavon Revel isn't that guy. I'm just saying I don't know that about him. So it looks to me like a recipe for a bust. This is a guy that me personally, I would stay away, but I understand why people like him.
Yeah, I watch him and like him, but like I said, I worry he's a guy that gives up. Like I said, he can like all these things and gives up catches. But in college, like he held his opponents the last 2 years to like 42% completion percentage. That's great. The issue is that he gave up like 17 yards per catch on the plays that he did give up. Now that can be over influence. There was one play where they run like a slant flat, and then just he runs into the nickel corner, just runs into him, and they get a 45-yard play on it, and that's counts the same as him giving up, just losing a ball vertically. And it's not the same, but it's still not good. So, and then just like the mental lapses in zone coverage, I feel like are there. But again, he is someone I'm willing to take a risk on, but I am also have some worries like you do. The next guy I want to talk about is a guy that I really like, and I think we may differ a little bit on this one. And that's Notre Dame's cornerback, Benjamin Morrison, 6 foot, 193 pounds, 30 1/4 inch arms. He has a hip injury, right? And that may be why he's not viewed the way he once was viewed, right? And he's got a showcase on April 21st, the Monday before the draft, where he's going to work out for NFL teams, and maybe that will make a decision. But ignoring that, I love the Benjamin Morrison film. He's given up less than 50% completion percentage the last 3 years. He doesn't give a lot of yards per catch. He has 9 interceptions and 12 pass breakups and 31 career games. Doesn't give those big plays. He pisses off wide receivers, right? Like you see wide receivers getting, you can see them getting pissed off from him because he just plays on your ass all game long. Physical. Again, he doesn't have like this big press profile, right? He's 6 foot, 30 2/8 inch. He's not the fastest guy in the world, but he is just on you from beginning of the snap to the end and every single play, right? But it's just, I think he's fairly quick. He stays in phase. He's someone who pounces from his back pedal really well, and he's just disrupts it's hard to get releases off on him, right? And sometimes when you see these guys who are like that, you'll see them just get sauced at the release. That didn't happen. There was one. I went and watched the Marvin Harrison Jr. matchup last year. There was one slant where Marvin Harrison Jr. turned him around. Outside of that, it didn't happen. And he knows how to play through wide receivers' hands to go and disrupt the pass when it is tighter coverage. It doesn't always. He's not someone who's going to be turning his head and being an interception hunter, even though he had 6 interceptions a few years ago. But he just plays in this low, squatty position and pisses you off. And then you put him in off coverage. Like, he's patient to not let these wide receivers get these in-breakers on him. Like a lot of guys that we're going to talk about, where it's like, oh, they're good at this, but they give up in-breakers and hitches because they don't trust themselves in off coverage, or when they play man coverage, they overextend trying to cover vertically. It just doesn't happen with Benjamin Morrison. And I think he's a first-round talent. The hip injury obviously can change shit. And again, I think that's probably the reason why. But I love Benjamin Morrison's film.
I don't think we're going to differ that much. I mean, I do have like one note that we're not talking about that is a negative, but I agree. I think that this is a first round talent with him. Again, weary about taking guys in the first round, but just talking about talent, I would say first round talent. Also young.
But he's not going to go in the first though. Like, or at least I don't think he is. So, which is like, might be nice.
I don't know. A lot changes even between now and draft day, and there's always surprises on draft day. So I wouldn't be shocked to see him go in the.
He has a showcase on he has a showcase on the Monday of draft week too. So that'll be the first time people see him work out since the injury.
Yeah. And I don't know the severity of the hip injury, and I'm also not a doctor, Mantis Toboggan, but he's also 21 years old. He's on the younger side for these guys. And I don't think he's small. He's 6 feet, 193 pounds. Is not that's a pretty stocky, but that's solid, height and weight ratio there. I think that he's one of the better guys at the line of scrimmage. And I think that he is really, really patient at the release too. He really doesn't overreact to too much at the release. I think he can get grabby a little bit, but for the most part, you're right. I think he's just physical and disruptive all along the route tree. Really, really good at the catch point. My biggest negative against him is that for whatever reason, like I said, like it's not like he's light or small or anything like that, but there is a strength issue that shows up. I think he struggles to separate from wide receiver blocks, and sometimes he gets completely just flipped around. He's not a super active part of the run game. You're right. He is a blitzer. I have the note here, but when he comes in, he's always got his hands up to block, which is good. He just doesn't really close well. Like you don't just see him like pin his ears back and just fly at the quarterback and just drill him. I don't really even know that I even saw him get a hit on the quarterback, just coming in, hands up, whatever. That's and again, this is like a personal thing for me because I think that in general, when it gets to draft season and we're talking about all these traits and we're comparing corners across the board, one thing that I don't think is talked about enough is the corners and how they are in the run game, how willing they are to move up to the line of scrimmage. And nobody seems to care when you bring it up. And I'm not talking about you and me here, but just in general, I bring this up with other people, brought on other shows and talk about, corners just not being an active part in the run game, not being a willing hitter and things like that. Nobody cares until they're on your team in an NFL game and they're just dogging it and they shy away from hitting. They kind of, throw a shoulder and not really try. And the NFL game is not forgiving. And that clip of you getting trucked gets played all the time. And when I see him just completely struggle to get away from wide receiver blocks, and maybe it's the limited film I was able to watch, I don't know, but it is definitely a negative I have on him.
So this is a take. Is because, like you said, those plays do show up where a wide receiver gets on his ass as a blocker. But how I said, like, he pisses receivers off? I think he gets the blocking effort of wide receivers that other guys don't get, because that's their chance to, like, I get to put my hands on this guy and try and hurt him, right? And it turns into these fights. So again, but like you said, the negative is that when those times happened, he lost, right? Whereas like there's time where he's getting driven 8 yards off the line of scrimmage, and that's I don't want to make that sound like a good thing, but I do feel like, like you said, I watch all the run plays for corners and wide receivers too. It's a part of doing this draft stuff. And a lot of college guys just have their wide receivers just run a fancy release and then release outside and just occupy the corner. He got, blocks from guys. But I really like him. The hip is obviously a huge question mark, but also that's why it probably makes him as an option for the Giants. Obviously at 34, but I think there's chances of him being available at 65, right? You see him in the simulators and consensus kind of go around that time. That could be the nice time to take a swing on a guy who I think is a first-round talent, but it's not going to go in the first round, more likely than not. So, but I really like Benjamin Morrison. The next guy you really like, Maxwell, Hairston of Kentucky. So you like him a lot. I'll let you kind of introduce him.
22 years old, 5'11", 183 pounds with 31-inch arms, a blazing 40 time of 4.28. I don't know how fake that is, but it's important for me to at least have it noted. He's fast as hell. And the 10-yard split is 1.53, which I think was, if it's not tied for the fastest among DBs, it was really high up there. I'm not really a huge combine or numbers guy, but it's, all in context. There's some work to be done here, right? I think he looks best in zone and off man coverage. He's a little bit shorter. 5'11" is not really short, but he's not a punk. You know what I mean? He gets physical. He doesn't get punked by guys. He's not getting pushed 8 yards off the line of scrimmage.
He plays run defense like a safety.
He sure does. He gets his nose dirty in the run game. He needs some better tackling for him, but he's not afraid to lay wood. I think that lightning speed comes into play all the time, both the long speed and the short area quickness to close on stuff. But there's certainly a lot that needs to be worked on. For starters, he plays a little bit too far off for my liking. And by a little bit, I mean way too far off for my liking. Could be a Kentucky thing. We were talking a little bit before this, something you saw with Drew Phillips as well. But I mean, the closing speed is super dangerous. He led the SEC in interceptions last year when he actually played a full season with 5 picks. I don't remember what the nature of his injury was this year. That
Everyone's injured this year.
I'm sorry, it was a shoulder injury. So he played 7 games, he missed 5. So he played more than half the year. And a shoulder injury is something I would expect from someone who hits the way he does, which is extremely physical, not afraid to get dirty, but doesn't really have the best tackling for him. He's going to throw his body like an animal. I really like his timing though. For someone who's super fast, I think that he plays patiently. He will need to. I don't think that he's going to be in the slot, though I do think he has possibly some inside-outside versatility. I think that he'll need to clean up how much space he gives wide receivers. I think that's going to be the biggest hurdle for him. And at the college game, I think he could rely on his speed and athleticism to make up for that. He's still going to be among the fastest players on the field at the NFL level, but every tiny little step is wasted movement and wasted time that you have to make up at the NFL level. So he can't just rely on being, I don't know, the fastest guy on the field.
You're a son of a bitch, though. You really are, because he's super athletic, like you said. He's twitched up. But I had my thing. I was going to let you talk. I was going to say, but Grump, but. There's buzzwords and buzz phrases that get used in draft, like no wasted movement, and people just fucking talk. With him, there is so much wasted movement at the top of a route, right? Like it's like these, Barney, these Flintstone steps where he's like da 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 da, and then he goes, right? Once he goes, he's super quick. If you're getting him working sideways, he's got these twitched up movements. But when you have him in off coverage, and say they're running a curl or a 5-yard in. It's just when he sees that, he has a ton of wasted movement at that. And I feel like you said, like teams, he played off coverage. It's a little bit of a Kentucky thing as well, too. We saw it a lot with Drew Phillips, especially when he played on the outside last year for Kentucky. But like you said, he plays the run. I think he should move to nickel. I think there's a world where he can last on the outside, Grump. But I think his small frame leaves him struggling with size. I just feel like with that run defense, it's not even like just an all negative. It's just like that run defense I feel like fits better in the nickel. I think he should move inside, where I think that's where he can find a role and thrive in the NFL. I think on the outside, I don't know if I'm trusting him to be like a long-term starter.
Maybe not. Yeah, I could see that. But I don't think 5'11" is too short. And he does have the added length at 31-inch arms.
Yeah.
Some of these other guys that we talk about have shorter arms, even though they're taller than him. I think where you don't really get to see that length is because he's always so far off. You know what I mean? With Benjamin Morrison being right there on top of guys, the whole route, him playing through the ball and through the hands of the wide receiver is evident constantly all over his film. And with Hairston, it's not there. But to me, that doesn't mean that he can't do it. It just means that he wasn't doing it at Kentucky. And for me, the athleticism here and, just the mentality. Like I don't know.
He's a smart player in zone. Like he sees concepts develop and makes plays. You know, he had a really nice interception versus Mizzou last year where he just diagnosed what they were doing, jumped the ball, and made an interception. He is not. I'm not. When I say moving him inside, it's not. A lot of times, most of the times when I'm saying that, it's definitive. Like not going to last on the outside. You got to move him inside. You know, with Drew Phillips last year, it's like you got to move him inside. He cannot play outside in the NFL. You know, we keep on mentioning Giants corners, but Darnay was an outside corner at UCLA. So he can't do it. He has to move inside in the NFL. Hairston is not that case for me, right? I don't say it as like he cannot last on the outside. You have to move him inside. I just think he can thrive in the inside. Where on the outside, I think he may end up just being kind of a guy.
Oh, I could certainly see that. And Darnay Holmes, I mean, you look at his UCLA film, and you're like, this dude's not going to play on the outside. You just had to watch one game, and you're like, nah.
The Washington State game, it lives rent-free in my head. They just kept throwing at him, and the receivers just kept on making plays. But then you watch him play Hollywood Brown, and he did really good in that game against Kyler Murray. Shout out Darnay Holmes film. I remember you have to used to watch that shit on all broadcasts, how the game has changed. You got anything else on Maxwell Hairston?
No, I mean, I agree with you. I think that he would thrive on the inside, but I think he can survive on the outside. I think that versatility helps him. You know what I mean? He could be, you know, in dime packages. And again, 22 years old, he's young. He can sit for a while. You know, in the context of the New York Giants, they could certainly use another, you know, inside corner. Off the top of my head, do we even have an inside corner behind Drew Phillips right now?
Oh.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's that as well. And if he has the inside-outside versatility, it certainly helps. Doesn't hurt. That's my opinion.
Let's talk about famous Amos. Trey Amos, the corner out of Ole Miss. Stop me if you've heard me say this on this episode. A press corner. Plays with confidence. Speed is solid, but doesn't possess great long speed. Solid quickness to transition well, but not the click and close speed. I mean, it's... With Amos, you know, he didn't get much playing time at Alabama before transferring to Ole Miss, and he played in the what school did he play for? I fucking forgot to write it down. In the Sun Belt Conference before that. His film was good, right? He pokes the ball out like he's again another really physical guy. I don't really see him like, you know, matching at the release, but he just is fun. He able to funnel guys where he wants them to be and physical. But he's another guy where it's like I like all these things about him, but he's someone where when he's facing quicker receivers, I feel like he just loses the release, and those guys are able to get to their spot. And then when he is playing physical and they're running vertically, he's a guy who overplays it and gets beat by these stop routes consistently. And if you're losing the release and you're someone that they can throw 8-yard hitches and 10-yard curls or whatever at you, you're going to be a guy who gives up catches. But I think if you put him in like a cover 3 bump and run zone scheme, you can find a lot of success with Trey Amos.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that. I like him better as a zone coverage corner, and I think he's incredibly intelligent in those systems. I think he knows exactly when to break off of routes. He's really comfortable in the zone. Where I think he falls apart in man is I just think that the speed is average, and I think he knows it. So I think among the corners that we had to prep for the Senior Bowl and that we saw at the Senior Bowl, he was not one of the fastest. And I think at times he does overplay the deep ball because he knows he has to get a jump on that because he doesn't have the same long speed. So I think it's double-edged for him, and that really makes me nervous in man coverage systems. But if you are going to play him, like you said, in a cover 3, I think that he's actually a really, really good fit. Another thing, you know, this is another guy for me that I found there's not a lot of tape of him playing super physically in the run game. Doesn't really like to get his hands dirty. You see him kind of get in there and just kind of stand there and then get out of the way of the tackle as it's happening around him. It's just an icky thing I hate watching. It's just like, come on, man, play football. Go in there, hit somebody. You're standing right there. So that shit just drives me crazy. But I don't want to shit all over the guy. I think he's an excellent corner. He has really good timing to make plays on the ball. Really, really good ball skills. And like I said, really intelligent in zone coverage, really knows when to break off of his routes and close down on where the play is going. He knows the concepts that are going on around him.
Yeah, and I'm not drafting anybody for a Shane Bowen scheme, but he fits this, right? And, he's got the ball production, 3 picks and 10 pass breakups last year for Ole Miss. And you mentioned the zone stuff. Like, I have a note, really good instincts to zone, to jump things and pass things off at the right time. Doesn't get stuck on a man. Knows when to move off of them. And then, like I said, with like the overplaying vertical, well, it's if you have someone that's bailing out to the flats, that helps you there, right? Like, I think he's someone where he needs to know where his help is, right? He's like, all right, if I get funnel him inside, then I'm good. If I know I gotta stay outside of him, like I'm able to, or sorry, if I know I gotta press him into the sideline, all right, I'll play that way. I feel like he's someone, again, just fits much better in the zone scheme. Even though you look at him, you're like, man, he plays press coverage. He's physical. It's just, I feel like, again, corner 2 in a cover 3 zone scheme, which is the Shane Bowen scheme. All right, Grump. Azareye'h Thomas, corner out of FSU. Hey, guess what? He's big, he's long, and he's physical. This is how we've started basically every freaking profile for him. But he's actually, he's 6'1.5", 32.5-inch arms. He is. We said these guys are physical. I think he's the most physical out of the guys that we've talked about. Like, he is on your ass, right? Like, he'll overextend. And he feels like he knows what his limitations are, where, again, another guy who doesn't have like this great speed and the quickness as the route develops isn't there, but he's going to jam the shit out of you, and he's going to get hands on you and try and stay connected. And he does, right? Once he gets hands on you, he does stay connected. And he'll fight for that inside leverage in the quick game, right? Like, don't try and run slants at Azareye'h Thomas. He's going to go at your ass. The issue is, it's kind of, that's his game and that's it, right? You put him in zone coverage, he gives up way too much cushion. He doesn't have a lot of burst out of his back pedal to challenge those underneath routes, and the physicality can lead to penalties. So, he's, again, a guy who can last as a corner 2 in the NFL, and is really good at one thing, but he's someone who, I don't know how much you trust him to just play cover 4 and cover, whatever zone coverages that are out there, and you can't really put him off coverage, because that's just, you take away what he's good at when you do that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe correct me if I'm wrong here, but my note really is that if the Giants still had Wink Martindale as a defensive coordinator, he's a much better fit at that point.
Absolutely, right? And teams avoided him too this past year, right? Like, they just did not throw at him. He gave up 17 catches in 12 games, 33 targets, but only 141 yards, right? He had, gave up 8 yards per catch. That's I think that's the best out of the the group that we're looking at when it comes to that. He had 5 pass breakups, didn't give up any touchdowns. So, like, he was an imposing force for that FSU defense. If you look at, you watch Cam Ward film, I don't think Cam Ward played bad against FSU, but FSU was the one team that, like, basically stopped him from doing the superpower stuff that he was able to do. And I think Azareye'h Thomas was a part of that. I thought that was a game where Cam Ward played quick game well, and I feel like it was like, okay, he can play controlled if a defense is trying to take this stuff away. But again, physical guy, Grump, and that seems to be the theme of this class. But I think he's the most physical out of them.
I for sure. I think that he enjoys being physical. You can see it in him. He likes throwing guys around. He's strong press man at the line of scrimmage, maybe a little too grabby down the field for the NFL game, but an absolutely willing, strong tackler. Probably needs some better form, but he likes to lay the wood. And I don't know, it's just a trait that I really, really like to watch. But I also question a little bit of you said the burst out of the back pedal. I don't know if the burst even to close, I think at times can be just adequate at best. I don't know, but
yeah, it's not there.
He's a physical specimen. I mean, I think if you're going to build the perfect corner, he's probably going to be 6'1", 197 pounds and 32-inch arms. You know what I mean? So I do think that, in if the Giants were in a Wink Martindale scheme, this is a perfect fit. He likes to hit. He could come in on a blitz, blast somebody, but he's going to need blitzes and things like that to kind of make up for gaps in coverage, especially if he's dropping back into zone instead of man. But, usually a man scheme.
Right. All right, we're going to finish off with someone that you fell in love with at the Senior Bowl, Grump. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't get to the film on him because it was my sister-in-law's birthday party. I did watch film at my sister-in-law's birthday party like a fucking Gruden grinder, but I was not able to get to Quincey Riley, and he's your guy, so I'm going to let you talk about him.
This is a guy who I like him. He's not like super high on my thing, but if we were going to pick an 8th guy to do, I think we did 8 guys, right? This is the guy I would pick. He's on the older side. He's 24 years old. He's on the shorter side. He's 5'10", but 194 pounds and 31-inch arms. He's fast. I think fast. He's a 4.4 40. It's not the fastest, but it's fast as hell. I think it's a 1.6 10-yard split, so he's quick as well. He has a desirable length. He might be inside-outside versatile. I think on the inside, the quickness may not be all the way there. So I'm not really sure where he fits, and that might be his doom. You know what I mean? Where he's just a good athlete, a good defensive player. I don't know. He just may not be starter caliber. But I think he matches speed pretty well. I think he mirrors wide receivers pretty well. One thing I noticed about him is that he's really not tugging on jerseys all that much. Of all the guys we watched, I have the note that he's rarely tugging at jerseys or fouling. Maybe that's not... I didn't have a ton of film to watch, but I did have a couple of games to watch, and I didn't really see a whole lot of that. I would like to see more disruption within 5 yards. I don't love that he's completely hands-off, but at least I know he's not going to get flags all over the place, and I liked J.C. Horn a lot, but that was a huge concern I had about J.C. Horn coming. I was like, is this guy even going to survive in the NFL? Look at this. I think he looked best in man coverage, both press and off. I think in zone he could get a little bit lost. I'm not really sure the reason for it. I don't know if it's not understanding or just giving up too much space, or just not knowing where the boundaries of where he's supposed to be responsible are. But definitely somebody that looked better in man situations. Willing tackler, good position, some poor form, a lack of general physicality and strength, not physicality. And I don't know if that has to do with size or just willingness. Not really sure. But I do think that he has some good instincts and he's willing to trust them too. So you can see him kind of jump and undercut at times. I think in the 2023 Miami game, he had 2 things that could have easily been picks. He just wasn't able to pull them in. And then for me, really at the Senior Bowl, for the one team he was on, the national team, he was the clear best DB. It wasn't even close. He rarely allowed any catches. So that's where he really stood out to me, was less so the film and where he looked with NFL coaches. And that's a place where Azareye'h Thomas was. I think Maxwell Hairston was there too, right?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, so he stood out to me in Mobile. And that's where I wouldn't say I fell in love with him or whatever, but it was certainly underlining his name kind of a lot. And he had a lot of really good ball skills and timing in the one-on-one drills, which we spent the whole day kind of zeroing in on. So Quincey Riley may be one of those like early day 3 guys that is, I don't know, qualify as like a glue guy where it's just like, he's the next man up. He's got to cover a game and he doesn't embarrass himself. He's solid depth. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? Every team needs that. Corners are routinely some of the most injured people in the NFL.
As someone who hasn't watched his film, I think you're totally wrong and he sucks. No, but I actually,
I'm a scumbag.
We talked about him on the Senior Bowl. We talked about him on the Senior Bowl recap. So I remember, I was like, I'll let you pick the 8th guy. And we were talking last night, and you're like, can we just do Quincey Riley? I was just gonna tell you to do Quincey Riley. So glad you're able to do it. And I'm sorry that my sister-in-law happened to have her birthday party on the day that we're recording the cornerback preview. Not fair. So the show's over. I want to see if people will judge me. Am I stupid? So my internet's been a little spotty lately. Right? Never said it's always been great, but it's been a little spotty. So I'm changing my internet provider. I'm not going to say who because, now that I'm just not giving out free advertising. And I just said, you know what? Screw it. I'm running an internet company. I want to have the best internet possible. I signed up for a 5 gig internet plan. Is that insane?
Ooh, that's more than I use, and I stream stuff all the time. You won't be disappointed. I can tell you
I
that.
better not be. It's a lot. It's a very expensive. But I was like, you know what? Like, at least for the draft, right? We're going to be streaming the entire draft. I don't want to have it getting blurry or whatever. Like, I just want it to be perfect, right? Because, I'm going to have us streaming on one computer. I'll have the other computer that I'm using. We'll have another, computer or like a, iPad streaming, to get clips and stuff like that. So I just was like, you know what? I'm just going to upgrade to I literally Googled fastest internet possible to get for your home. And it was, fiber 5 gigs. It's expensive, but I was just like, you know what? It's worth it. If it's not amazing, I'm going to be pissed off because like film drives that I've used, like that usually take like 4 minutes to download or taking 11 minutes. And I was like, I can't have this happen for the draft.
Yeah, I mean, your whole job exists on the internet, so I don't think it's stupid. It is pretty wild, but now that I'm thinking about it more, looking back, we were talking yesterday about how I one of the first times I had jumped on Talking Giants just completely out of the blue was during the draft because I had actual notes on Aaron Robinson, and I thought you were joking. You're like, Grump, seriously, get in here. If you know something about this guy, tell me now. And so I jumped on there and we're talking, and meanwhile you have a game pulled up and you're trying to watch it and like stream it, and you said it got really close to crashing everything, the whole stream.
Oh, my computer was like, but it's an old crappy computer. But
if there's been one consistent in all the times you've been doing the draft, it's that the Giants are going to take someone that you might not have done any work on, and it might be
last year was awesome.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean,
last year was 5 for 5 until Morrison.
I don't think that I don't think there's anything wrong with you having to pull up an Aaron Robinson film, and what the hell not? Why not break it down while the other teams are picking? I mean, yeah, is it important that other teams are picking? But I'm sure Giants fans are going to be just as happy looking at film being broken down right in front of them and pointing out the guy they just got live while it's happening. So if you are going to be able to do that, I don't think it's stupid at all.
Yeah. Gosh, dude, every time someone brings up, and Julian did too today because we didn't do Dalen Gabriel on the draft preview. He's like, I hope you have another Cordell Flott. That is my worst fear is like, you know me, I'm preparation, right? I like to have everything planned out and ready to go. Just the biggest fear is like you have this big moment, exciting weekend, and then it's like, yeah, I don't know who this guy is at pick 65. Like there's just no bigger fear than pick 65 being someone I don't know, right? I'll be fine for the round 1 and round 2. There's no chance of that happening. Where last year it was just like amazing, where it's like, obviously, first round good. And then we had everyone except for Moaso. And I was like, okay, that's fine. All right, that's an episode. We'll be back again Monday. Connor Rogers doing a little mock draft exercise, and then I'll give some of my thoughts on the wide receivers. And then Grump will be back Wednesday and Friday for edge and O-line previews. And then, we're just coming right up on the draft. So appreciate you guys. Have a great weekend. We'll see you then. Until then, let's go Big Blue.